The chopsticks were halfway to my mouth when I heard my name split open the entire restaurant. Not spoken, not called, screamed. The kind of sound that makes children stop crying, that makes servers freeze mid-step, that makes the man sitting across from me look up from his menu with an expression I couldn't name yet. I knew that voice before I even turned around. Jiyeon. Then a hostess. Sir, please, you can't. And then nothing but the sound of footsteps crossing the polished floor, like something inevitable. Devin, my ex, the one I had spent 4 months trying to legally disappear from my life, the one who had shown up at my mother's dry cleaning shop twice in 1 week, the one who had sent 300 messages in a single night before I finally got the restraining order. He was pushing past staff, past the reaching arm of a security guard who was moving, but not fast enough, not nearly fast enough. He looked different, thinner. Something behind his eyes had gone loose in a way that scared me more than his anger ever had. I dropped my glass, plum wine bleeding across the white tablecloth like something being confessed. You think you can just sit here? His voice bounced off the walls. Like you didn't destroy everything? Like you owe me nothing? I could not breathe. My body remembered before my mind did. That old stillness, that learned smallness, locking every muscle into place. Across from me, Marcus Kwan had not moved. He was watching Devin with a kind of focused calm that made me more afraid than Devin's screaming did. His dark eyes tracked each step. His hands rested flat on the table. He was not tense. That was the strangest part. He was simply still in the way that water is still before something breaks the surface. Devin reached our table and grabbed my arm, hard, yanking me up from my chair until I was half standing, half stumbling, and the whole room was watching us, watching me, and the humiliation was louder than the pain. I've been trying to reach you for months, he said, face pressed too close, and you're here, with him? Let go of me, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. We are done, Devin. We have been done. His free hand moved to my throat, not choking, claiming, like I was still something he owned and just needed to remind everyone of it. A woman somewhere in the room made a sound I will never forget, and then he hit me, open palm, sharp and sudden, and my vision went white at the edges, and I tasted copper along the inside of my cheek. Through tears, I watched Marcus Kwan stand. He did not rush, he did not shout. He reached up with both hands, slow and deliberate, and adjusted his left cuff, then his right. The room held its breath. If you're watching this and you need to know what happened the moment that man straightened his cuffs and stood up, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because what came next changed everything about my life. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I want to know who is riding through this with me. Devin was still gripping my arm, still yelling something about sacrifice and loyalty and everything he claimed I had taken from him. He did not notice what I noticed. The restaurant manager had gone pale the second Marcus stood. 2 servers near the kitchen had stopped moving completely. The security guard approaching Devin had slowed, his eyes now fixed on Marcus instead. Something in the room had shifted, and only I did not understand what it meant yet. "Remove your hand," Marcus said. His voice was quiet, terrifyingly quiet, the kind of quiet that has no bottom. "Remove your hand, or I will remove it for you." Devin finally looked at him, really looked, and for just a second I saw uncertainty trying to push through all that rage. But Devin had never been reasonable when he felt cornered. "Who do you think you are?" he laughed, his voice cracking at the edges. Marcus's hand closed around Devin's wrist with a precision that looked like it had been practiced 10,000 times. I heard the sound before I understood it, a crack. Devin released me instantly, howling, doubling forward, his hand dropping away from my arm like something cut loose. Marcus stepped between us in a single motion, calm, a wall in a dark suit that smelled of sandalwood and certainty. Devin swung with his free arm out of pure desperation. Marcus caught his fist in the air, drove his knee into Devin's midsection with surgical efficiency, and Devin collapsed to the floor gasping. "You don't touch her," Marcus said, same quiet voice. You don't speak to her, you don't think about her. Two men appeared from directions I could not account for. Men in dark suits who moved with the ease of people who had done this before, who knew where to put their hands and how to lift a man without making it look like a scene. "Get him out," Marcus said, without looking at them. "Make sure he understands what it means to come near her again." Devin was still screaming as they moved him toward the door. "Jian, this is not over. You hear me? You belong to me." The words followed me even after the door closed, even after the room exhaled and conversations resumed in careful, hushed tones, even after Marcus guided me back into my chair with a hand on my shoulder, so careful it nearly undid me entirely. I was shaking. My entire body was beyond my control, trembling so hard I had to press both palms flat on the table to hold myself in place. The manager appeared with ice folded in linen, and Marcus took it without being asked, held it against my cheek himself, his touch impossibly gentle for someone who had just ended a confrontation in under 30 seconds without losing his breath. "I'm sorry," I whispered. The words felt like swallowing something hot. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know he would follow me here." "You have nothing to apologize for," Marcus said. His hand covered mine on the table. His palm was steady and warm, and everything I was not in that moment. Nothing. But I couldn't stop shaking. Couldn't stop hearing Devin's promise trailing out through the restaurant doors. Couldn't stop thinking about the fact that this man, this near stranger my grandmother had been telling me about for weeks, had just witnessed the most humiliating moment of my life without flinching once. And the most frightening thing wasn't what Marcus Kwan had done. It was the fact that for the first time in 4 months, sitting with his hand over mine in a restaurant that had just witnessed chaos, I felt safe. My mother called 11 times before I answered. It was Sunday morning, and I was still in my bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the restaurant on a loop. The slap, the stillness of Marcus standing, the sound of Devin's wrist under pressure. "Gianna," my mother's voice was high and tight. "Mrs. Park from our building said she saw something online. About you. About a restaurant downtown." Of course. I sat up slowly, my cheek still tender at the edge. "I'm fine, Emma. I'm fine." "There's a video," she said. "People are saying it's you." A video. My stomach dropped. Someone had filmed it. The worst 4 minutes of my life were traveling between strangers on their phones like entertainment. My father got on the line next, quieter, the edge in his voice sharper for being controlled. "This is the same man from before? The one the police couldn't stop?" "He violated the order," I said. "He was arrested. It's being handled." "And the man who stepped in," my father said, his tone shifting. "Who was he?" I paused. How do you explain Marcus Kwan? The cuff adjustment, the way the entire restaurant reacted to him rising from his chair. "Someone Halmoni introduced me to," I said finally. "We were on a first date." My father was quiet for a long moment. Then he said simply, "Some first date." My younger brother Jihoon grabbed the phone next. "Nuna, I saw the video. Just say the word and I'll handle it. Me and my friends will." "No." My voice came out harder than I meant it to. "No, Jihoon, you will absolutely not." I spent the next 20 minutes talking him back from the edge of something foolish before I finally hung up. That afternoon, my best friend, Sua, arrived at my apartment with her arms full of tuck and an expression full of fury. "Men like Devin never just let go," she said, dropping onto my couch. I knew he wouldn't. She had been the one who drove me to the police station, who let me sleep on her floor for a week when I was too afraid to be alone. Now she was watching me with that particular combination of worry and barely contained curiosity. "The man," she said slowly. "Tab, that video. People are asking who he is. He's everywhere right now." I pulled out my phone. When I searched my own name, the results came up fast. Grainy video, but clear enough. Marcus standing, the cuffs, the moment Devin's grip on me broke. The comments underneath were a world of their own. 2 weeks passed with no word from Devin. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt like a person standing in a field watching clouds build on the horizon, unable to do anything but wait. Work became my shelter. My supervisor called me in that Monday with concern arranged carefully across her face. "We heard about the weekend. Do we need to update building security?" I told her I was fine. Didn't mention that Marcus Kwan had been calling me every single day since that night. Not pushing for another date, just checking. Did you sleep? Have you eaten? How was your face feeling? Questions that should have felt like intrusion but somehow landed like something else entirely. It was a Thursday when everything cracked open again. I had stayed late finishing a translation contract, and when I walked into the parking structure below my office, the overhead lights were doing that slow, uncertain flicker that makes every shadow feel inhabited. My keys were already between my fingers before I heard the footsteps. I turned around, and there was Devin. He looked the way a person looks when they have stopped taking care of themselves, stopped sleeping, stopped believing the consequences are real. His eyes had a quality I had no word for except wrong. "You had me arrested," he said. His voice echoed off the concrete. "You know I lost my job? You know what I've had to deal with because of you?" I backed toward my car, my hand reaching for my phone. "You did that yourself, Devin." He moved toward me and I opened my mouth to scream when headlights flooded the entire structure. A black sedan pulled smoothly between us, as if it had rehearsed this moment. 2 men stepped out, same 2 from the restaurant, same dark suits, same unhurried efficiency. Devin stared at them and then at me. "You have bodyguards now?" He laughed, the sound of it hollow and strange. "You've got to be kidding me." I was as stunned as he was. I had not asked for this, had not known they were there. One of the men spoke quietly into his phone in Korean, then addressed Devin in English with the flat finality of a door closing. "You need to leave now, or we'll help you leave." After they walked Devin out, one of the men turned to me. "Mr. Kwan wanted to ensure your safety," he said simply. "We've been monitoring the situation." Monitoring. That word sat in my chest the whole drive home. That night, I called Marcus. "You have people following me?" There was a pause on his end. Then, "Protecting you. There's a difference." "You can't make that decision without telling me." My voice sharpened that I planned it to be. I was pacing circles around my living room, pressed hard against my ear. "You're right," he said after a moment. "I should have talked to you first. I apologize. Would you like me to call them off?" I stopped pacing, stood at my window, thought about Devin's face in that parking garage, the particular desperation of a man who has stopped calculating consequences. "No," I said quietly. "Don't call them off, but I need you to understand something." I sat down, chose my footing the way you choose your footing on uncertain ground. I am not something fragile that needs carrying. I rebuilt my life. I did that myself. "I know exactly who you are," Marcus said. His voice softened in a way that moved through the phone and settled somewhere behind my ribs. "You're the woman who left when leaving was the hardest possible thing, who built herself back up from nothing, who was brave enough to try again even knowing what trying had cost her before. That's not fragile. That is everything." Something in my chest came loose. Devin had spent 2 years making me smaller, making me feel like I needed his presence to stay upright. Marcus was offering protection while naming my strength. The difference between those 2 things was not subtle. It was the distance between a cage and an open door. The next day I noticed them, the bodyguards, one keeping quiet distance at the market, another positioned near the window when I met Sua for coffee. She set her cup down hard enough to rattle the saucer. "Jian, bodyguards, this is not normal." I told her about the parking garage, about Devin appearing again like something that refused to stay buried. "Just because you're allowing this doesn't make it healthy," Sua said. Her voice was careful, the way voices get when someone is trying not to sound afraid. "What happens when you want your life back?" I didn't have an answer, because the honest truth was that my life didn't feel taken. It felt, for the first time in a long time, like it was being held carefully by someone who understood its value. Whether that made me wise or foolish, I was still sorting out. If you're wondering whether she made the right call letting him protect her like this, hit subscribe right now because this choice is about to reshape everything. Drop a comment and tell me, would you accept protection from someone you barely know yet? I need to hear what you're thinking. Marcus called midweek with a question that turned my stomach over. "Would you be comfortable meeting my family?" I stared at my phone. One date, one extraordinary, violent, life-rearranging date, and he was asking about family? "That's fast," I said. "In my father's culture and my mother's, both," he said. "When intentions are serious, this is the natural next step." He paused. "But only when you're ready." I wasn't sure I was ready. I heard myself say, "Only if you meet mine first." Which is how Marcus Kwan ended up at my parents' home the following Sunday, sitting at our low dining table while my mother kept adding side dishes to the spread and watching him from the corner of her eye, and my father asked questions wrapped in politeness that weren't polite at all. "What do you do, Mr. Kwan?" "My family manages several businesses: restaurants, import and trade, real estate." "And your intentions with my daughter?" Marcus did not hesitate. To keep her safe, to earn her trust, to deserve her choice. Ji-hoon tested him with questions about football tactics, expecting confusion, getting instead a fluent conversation that turned my brother's skepticism into something that looked a lot like respect. But it was the moment on the back porch that I watched through the kitchen window, my father and Marcus standing together under the early evening light, speaking in low voices I couldn't hear, that changed the temperature of the house when they came back inside. My father's face had not gone warm exactly, but it had shifted. Something had been communicated between them that I was not privy to, but could feel. After Marcus left, my mother pulled me aside. "He listens," she said simply, "not waiting to talk, actually listening." Ji-hoon added that he didn't look at me like something he owned, and my grandmother, who had been quiet through the entire evening, just smiled the way she smiles when she already knows how the story ends. "He understands the difference between protecting someone and possessing them," she said. "That is not a common man." I thought about Devin, who used to find reasons to leave our family gatherings early, who made me feel like my parents were an obligation rather than people I loved. Marcus had asked my mother for the recipe for her doenjangjjigae. He had laughed genuinely at my father's terrible jokes. He had treated the people I came from like they mattered, because he understood they mattered to me. When he walked me to the door that night, I expected him to kiss me. He leaned close, his hand gentle against my face, near where the bruise had lived for 2 weeks. Our breath overlapped in the cool air, and then he stepped back and kissed my knuckles instead. Slow, deliberate, old-fashioned in a way I didn't know I needed. "I want to earn this," he said quietly, "not take it because you're grateful." He left me standing in the doorway, understanding, for the first time, exactly what my grandmother had been trying to tell me. The invitation came 3 weeks after that family dinner. "My family is hosting a reopening for one of our restaurants downtown. I'd like you to see what we've built." I said yes without thinking twice. The venue downtown was a different category of event than I had prepared for. Valet attendants, local faces I recognized from news segments, photographers who moved through the crowd with purpose. This was not a restaurant opening. This was an announcement. Marcus's hand found the small of my back as we entered, and I noticed immediately the way the room responded to him, how people turned, how space opened, how deference moved through the crowd like a current. His mother's hug felt genuine in a way that surprised me. His father's handshake carried weight. His younger sister Clara materialized at my elbow within minutes, slipping her arm through mine like we had already decided to be friends. "I've never seen him like this," she whispered, nodding to Marcus's direction. "With anyone. You've done something to him." But it was the men in the room that my eyes kept returning to, some in expensive suits, some with the same careful posture as the men who had appeared in the parking garage. They moved through the crowd watching everything, cataloging everything, and something in my chest went quiet with a recognition I didn't yet have words for. I excused myself midway through the evening. On my way back from the restroom, I took a wrong turn down a service corridor and heard voices behind a door left slightly open. The conversation was rapid in Korean, and I could only catch pieces, but the pieces I caught made my blood go still. Territory, a third shipment, protection arrangements for the new quarter. The door opened. A man stepped into the corridor and looked directly at me. Then Marcus appeared in the doorway behind him. His expression as he registered mine was the most honest I had ever seen his face. "Let's talk," he said, taking my hand, privately. He led me to a terrace on the roof of the building, city lights below us. Neither of us spoke for a long time. "You heard something that concerns you now," he said finally. Not a question. I nodded. "My grandfather came to America with nothing except what he was willing to do," Marcus began. His voice was measured, looking out at the city. "He built everything through what he called unconventional channels, protection services, territorial control, things that live in shadows." He turned to face me. "We are legitimate now, mostly. The restaurants, the trade business, the real estate, all legal. But our roots don't just disappear because the surface changes." "Why did you really agree to meet me that night?" I asked. The question came out harder than I intended. His jaw tightened. "Your grandmother reached out to my family, said her granddaughter needed someone who understood protection in a way the police couldn't offer." "My grandmother." I said it slowly. "She knew what your family was. She knew exactly. Her late husband had business history with my grandfather many years ago." Marcus stepped closer. "She trusted us anyway. The question is whether you can." I thought about the parking garage, the restaurant, the way an entire room had recalibrated itself when this man stood up. "Does knowing change how you see me?" he asked. I looked at him. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "I need time to sit with this." "Take all the time you need." His voice was even and patient. "My protection doesn't require your acceptance." But we both already knew that was no longer entirely true, because accepting his protection and refusing his world were no longer two separate questions. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with my laptop searching Marcus Kwan, family business, and the city, and read everything I could find. Articles about their restaurant group, their import company, their real estate holdings. And underneath those, older articles, vague language, implications around his grandfather's generation that were never quite stated directly. It frustrated me more than a clear answer would have. Sue-Ah met me the next morning. I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the rooftop, my grandmother's knowing involvement. She stared at me. "Your grandmother set you up with someone connected to organized crime. It's more complicated than that." "Is it?" She leaned in. "Or are you making it complicated because he makes you feel safe?" She pressed a question I didn't want to answer. "If Devin disappeared tomorrow and was never a threat again, would you still want Marcus?" I thought about Marcus at my parents' table, the way he listened, the hand kiss instead of taking what he could have taken easily, the jade bracelet he would give me later that I didn't know about yet. "Yes," I said. "I would still want him." Sue-Ah looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "I know. That's what worries me." I drove to my grandmother's apartment unannounced and found her in the kitchen making songpyeon, like none of this had happened at all. "You knew what his family was," I said. She didn't stop working, kept her hands in the dough. "I knew exactly." "Then why?" She set her work down and turned to face me. "After Devin, after the police couldn't stop him, after the restraining order didn't stop him." She took my hands in both of hers. "You needed someone who operates by different rules, someone who understands that the world does not always honor the rules it claims to enforce." She looked at me carefully. "Has Marcus Kwan disrespected you, made you small, hurt you?" "No." "Then perhaps his world is not the threat. Perhaps it is the protection you didn't know how to ask for." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "I see your new friends are expensive. Think that changes what's coming?" Attached was a photograph. Me walking out of last night's event. Marcus's hand at the small of my back. Devin had been there, in the shadows, watching and documenting. My hands started shaking. I showed my grandmother. "Call Marcus," she said. "Right now." He answered on the first ring. Devin sent me a message. He was outside the restaurant last night. He has photos. Marcus's entire tone changed without raising his volume. Where are you? My grandmother's apartment. Stay there. I'm on my way. He arrived in 20 minutes with one of his men. He took my phone, studied the message and image with the focused attention of someone conducting an assessment, not having a reaction. He's escalating. Men like this don't retreat. They get more dangerous when they feel like they're losing. My grandmother watched from the kitchen doorway, arms folded, waiting. I want to move you to a secure place temporarily, Marcus said. No. The word came out of me without any deliberation. I am not disappearing. I will not let him shrink my life again. Then we expand coverage. Your building gets full monitoring. Your route to work gets covered at every point. I can accept that, I said. It felt like a compromise, like something chosen rather than surrendered. But then the question I had been sitting with since the rooftop, what are you going to do about Devin? Marcus's expression stayed still. What needs to be done? Legally first. And if legal doesn't hold, then I do what keeps you safe. You don't need the details. That should have frightened me. Maybe a small part of it did, but I thought about Devin's hand at my throat in that restaurant, his fists connecting with my face, the months of fear before I finally got out. I don't want him hurt, I said. That's not my intention, Marcus said immediately. Hurt creates witnesses and complications. What I want is for him to understand, fully and permanently, that you are untouchable. My grandmother excused herself to make tea and left us alone in her living room. Marcus sat beside me on the couch, keeping careful distance, respectful as he always was. I know my world frightens you, he said. It should. Some of what I am has to be frightening, but you make me want to be the person who shields things rather than the one who takes them. I looked at him. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of needing you. His hand covered mine. Need is not weakness. I've needed you since the second I saw him put his hands on you. We leaned toward each other. His hand moved to my cheek, slow and careful, near where the mark had finally faded. The front door opened, my grandmother with her tea tray, moving with the precise timing of a woman who had done this on purpose. We straightened, and despite everything, despite all of it, I almost laughed. The weeks that followed were unexpectedly quiet. Marcus's team began monitoring Devin. Legal pressure was applied with efficiency I didn't ask about, and Marcus and I found a rhythm. Dinner twice a week, phone calls every night that stretched longer than either of us planned. No emergencies, no violence, just two people learning each other. He took me to a Black cultural art exhibit at a downtown museum and explained his mother's family history, the jazz records his grandmother still kept, the Harlem photographs on her wall. I told him about the consulting firm I wanted to build one day, about my dream of working with Korean businesses expanding internationally. He listened like my future was a place he was genuinely trying to understand. After an evening gallery walk, hands intertwined, he told me about how his Korean grandfather had taught him the value of patience through the ritual of proper tea, that strength without restraint is only destruction, and his Black grandmother who told him the same thing differently, that a man who can't control his power has no real power at all. I was falling in love with him, not because of what he had done in that restaurant, because of who he was in every ordinary moment that came after. The following week, he gave me a gift, a small lacquered box. Inside, a jade bracelet with a delicate design that moved between both his heritages, a pattern I had never seen before. In my father's family, jade means protection and devotion, he said, fastening it around my wrist. I want you to have this. I looked at it in the light. I understood the weight of what was being offered. Not ownership, a declaration. That Sunday, I met his family formally, an elaborate meal at his parents' house in a neighborhood I had only driven through before. His mother was Korean, composed and warm in equal measure, watching everything. His father was tall and careful with his words, and asked about my work in a way that told me he had already done his research. Clara whispered to me in the kitchen that she had never once seen her brother nervous until the week I came into his life. But it was what happened on the back porch that shifted everything. Marcus's father pulled him outside for what they called air. Through the window, I watched them for 10 minutes, reading posture more than words. When they came back inside, something had settled between them. Later, Marcus's mother found me in the hallway. "You hold yourself like a woman who knows what she's worth," she said. "That took me years to learn." "Good." When he drove me home that night, Marcus asked the question I had been both waiting for and dreading. "Could you see yourself in my world permanently?" "I'm starting to be able to imagine it," I said. "That scares me." "It scares me too," he admitted. "I have never wanted someone to stay before." He parked outside my building, turned to face me fully. "I'm not asking you to decide tonight. I'm asking you to keep deciding, every day, with me." We leaned across the console. This time there was no interruption. His lips met mine, and the weeks of restraint between us came apart in the best possible way. When we finally separated, I made a decision before I could talk myself out of it. "Come upstairs for tea." "Are you sure?" "Yes." The tea was made and forgotten. We sat on my couch with his arm around me and talked until 2 a.m. about small things. Favorite memories, childhood embarrassments, the music we each went back to when we needed to feel like ourselves. A new kind of closeness that felt more significant than anything physical. Then his phone went off, insistently. He checked it, and every line of his body changed. "I have to take this." He stepped into my kitchen, spoke fast Korean I wasn't meant to understand. When he came back, the air around him was different. "Something's happened. I need to handle it." "What is it?" He paused. "Devin made contact with people he shouldn't have. He tried to hire someone to find gaps in your security coverage. The person he approached has connections to my world and reported it immediately." So Devin was still planning, still treating this as something he could win. "We need to move forward," Marcus said. He sat back down and took my hands. His men came 2 days later, Minjun, who I had started to recognize, and one named Ray. They laid out the plan. Create a controlled vulnerability, a fake appointment at a building they operated, make it look like a gap in coverage, give Devin the opening he was looking for. "I'm using you as bait," I said. "Only with your complete agreement," Marcus immediately said. "I will not risk you without consent." He walked through every detail, every position, every exit, every contingency. I thought about the alternative, living in permanent anticipation, waiting for Devin to find the real gap rather than the one we controlled. "I'll do it," I said, "but I want to know everything, every step." When I told Sua the next day, she looked at me like I had handed her something she didn't know how to hold. "Jian, you're offering yourself to him as a target." "I'm taking control of something that has been happening to me," I said. "For the first time, I'm choosing the terms." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked if I was sure I trusted Marcus, and I understood suddenly that I did. Completely. Which meant I was in love with him. Sua went very still. "That's what I was afraid of," she said softly. "I know," I said. The setup day came. I dressed professionally, the jade bracelet on my wrist. Minjun drove me to the building, let me out at the entrance per plan, and drove away. I rode the elevator to the 3rd floor, sat at the designated desk, waited. Through the earpiece in my ear, Marcus's voice was steady and present. "I'm here. You're safe." 15 minutes. 25. Then his voice. "He's in the building. He's on the stairwell." 2 minutes. The office door opened and Devin stepped inside, looking worse than I had ever seen him, unraveled, certain of himself in the way desperate people become certain when they think they've finally won. "No security," he said. "No rich boyfriend. Just you and me." I stood, backed toward the window as we had planned. "Devin, don't do this. You ruined everything I had," he said, crossing toward me. His hand closed around my arm. In my ear, 5 seconds. The door came off its hinges. Marcus entered with Ray, and everything that followed was precise and fast. Marcus took Devin's wrist, applied pressure at exactly the right angle, and Devin's hand fell away from my arm involuntarily. Ray moved me to the far wall, while Marcus brought Devin to his knees with the same clinical efficiency as the restaurant. No excess, no rage, no wasted motion. Ray held up his phone. "Every camera in the building has been running," he said. "The police are already en route." "You set me up," Devin said. You set yourself up, Marcus said. I just gave you a stage. The police arrived. Devin was arrested on multiple charges. This time, bail was denied. After they left, I felt the adrenaline crash all at once, the shaking I had held back through the whole operation coming up through me in waves. Marcus wrapped both arms around me and held me while I finally came apart completely. First time he had seen me like this. First time I had let him. That evening, he brought me to his apartment. First time inside his private space. Minimalist and warm. Books in English and Korean both. Photographs on a single wall. He made tea, sat beside me on the couch, did not push me to speak first. I was terrified, I finally said, even knowing you were there, every second. Good, he said quietly. Fear means you're paying attention. I was terrified too. I looked at him. Of what? Every second until I saw you were safe. I told him then what I had told Sua, that I loved him, not because of what he had done, because of who he was when he wasn't doing it. Marcus went still in a way I had come to understand meant something was moving through him he wasn't ready to name yet. I have been waiting for you to say that, he said finally, and then he told me the thing I needed to know before anything else changed between us. In my world, commitment is absolute. If this continues the direction it's going, my family will expect marriage. It's not a casual arrangement. He looked at me directly. I'm not proposing tonight. I'm making sure you understand the landscape before you decide to walk further into it. Marriage. The word hung between us like something that had weight. I stood and paced the room. Marriage to a man whose world operated by rules I was still learning? Protection, yes, absolutely. But freedom? Can I still be my own person? Can I have my own work and dreams? I will never make you smaller, he said. Your ambitions are yours, but I need you to be honest with me. Can you love someone whose methods you won't always understand or agree with? I loved him. That part I was certain of. The rest of it was complicated. I asked to stay anyway. We lay together in his bed, fully clothed, talking until the words became murmurs and I fell asleep in his arms, safe and uncertain about everything else. 3 weeks later, a formal invitation arrived. Dinner at the Kwan family estate. Not a restaurant, the estate. The card was handwritten in both English and Korean. We would like to speak with you. Jian. I called him immediately. What is this? My father wants to meet you officially. About us. Yes, but you don't have to go if you're not ready. I went. Sua came over and helped me choose what to wear. Elegant, but not apologetic. My grandmother called from home. Listen more than you speak, she said. They're not testing your softness. They're testing your spine. The estate was gated and quiet, traditional Korean architecture alongside modern security that tried to be invisible and mostly succeeded. Marcus met me at the gate and took my hand. Whatever happens in there, we face it as one. The formal dining room held his parents, Clara, and 2 elder uncles I had not met before. Every seat arranged with intention. I understood this was not a dinner. This was a proceeding. His father spoke first. My son has expressed his intention to build a life with you. In our family, this is not treated casually. His mother added that marriage into their family came with responsibilities that extended well beyond the personal. An uncle asked if I understood the world I was considering entering. I answered honestly. I am still learning the full shape of it, I said. I won't pretend otherwise, but I'm willing to learn. The questions came in quick succession. Can you hold silence about things you observe? I've already done that. Loyalty is something I understand. What if his work requires him to be unreachable for days? Then I trust there are reasons and I expect honesty when he returns, not stories. Being his wife makes you a target in certain quarters. Does that frighten you? Yes, but I am already a target because of what he means to me. A ring doesn't change the risk calculation. His father explained the traditional expectations of the family. Then he added, and yet my son chose you because you are not a woman who needs to be managed. We are not asking you to become something you are not. We are asking you to become family. An uncle leaned forward. Family means our difficulties become yours. Our complications find your door. Can you carry that? I stood from the table slowly, keeping my posture respectful but not small. May I speak plainly? His father nodded. I love your son, I said. Not his protection, not the security of being close to someone like him. Him, the man who asks about my day like the answer genuinely matters, who held space for my family the moment he walked through their door, who kissed my hand when he could have taken much more. I paused. I understand that you're protecting him. I respect that completely. But I need you to understand that I am not standing here looking for entry into your world for safety or status. I am standing here because the thought of walking away from your son does damage to something in me that I spent a very long time repairing, and I am not willing to let that happen. Silence in the room. Then his father said, You have more backbone than I expected. I needed to see that. My son doesn't need someone to protect. He needs someone who can stand with him. There is a very large difference. His mother stood and crossed to me, and her smile was warm in a way that reached her eyes. Welcome to this family, Jian. She opened a wooden box on the sideboard. Inside, a gold ring set with jade, elegant and substantial. This was Marcus's grandmother's ring. Both sides of his family claim it. A promise ring. When you wear this, you are claiming us as we are claiming you. Marcus came to kneel beside my chair. Not a proposal, something older and more serious. Will you accept my family, my world, my protection and my devotion? All of it, knowing what it is? I looked at the ring, I looked at him. I thought about Devon's control and Marcus's partnership, the difference between a lock and an open hand, between chains and something freely chosen. Yes, I said, I accept all of it. He slid the ring onto my right hand, and the room released a breath it had been holding. Dinner resumed as though I had completed something, as though I had always been going to be sitting at this table, and the evening was simply the formality of confirming it. Afterward, Marcus walked me through the estate gardens in the dark. You were extraordinary in there, he said. I thought standing up was too much. That was the moment my father chose you. Under lantern light, he made a promise. This ring is my family holding you. When I propose for real, that will be only me. Just me asking for me. When? When you can say yes without any fear left in the answer. The kiss that followed was different from all the others. It settled something. 2 months later, I sat in a courtroom with Marcus beside me. Devon's trial. The verdict was swift. Guilty on multiple charges. 18 months, mandatory counseling, a permanent restraining order upon release. Devon looked at me from across the room when the judge read it. No rage remaining, just the empty look of a person who has run out of road. I had been offered the chance to give a victim impact statement. Marcus squeezed my hand once. Only if you want to. I approached the microphone. You made me believe that fear was what love felt like, I said. You made control feel like caring. You're the reason I almost didn't recognize real love when it stood up in front of me. I paused and let the room be quiet for a moment. I'm not forgiving you tonight, but I'm releasing you. You don't get to live inside my future anymore. When I returned to my seat, Marcus's pride was visible in the stillness of his face. Devon tried to speak. You think your boyfriend makes you better than me. You have no idea who he really is. I looked at Devon calmly. I know exactly who he is, I said, and he's shown me the difference between someone who holds you and someone who traps you. That's the only difference that matters. The judge silenced him. He was removed, still talking. That evening, both families gathered for dinner, my parents and his, Ji-hoon and Clara, who were now very conspicuously spending a great deal of time together, everyone who mattered in a single room. My father stood and raised his glass to my daughter who survived and chose something worth surviving for. My grandmother added, to the man who knew protection is only worthy when it honors the person being protected. Marcus stood, called the room to attention. He spoke about meeting a woman he was supposed to be introduced to, how he had arrived expecting to be polite for an evening and instead found someone who reordered something in him he hadn't realized was disordered. Then he reached into his jacket and took out a ring that was not the family ring, and he kneeled beside my chair. My family has already claimed you, he said. Now I'm asking on my own behalf. Tabitha, Jian, will you marry me? Not my protection, not my name, not the approval of everyone in this room. Just me. Will you choose me? Through the tears, I said yes. I choose you. I choose us. The room came apart in the best possible way. The honeymoon was Korea first, to meet the rest of his family and walk through places that were both strange and home to him in equal measure. Then the Caribbean, where it was just the two of us, and no one needed us to be anything except ourselves. We came back different, in the way that people come back from places they went together. 3 months after the wedding, I launched my consulting firm. Our dinner table rotated between both families every Sunday. Ji-hoon and Clara were officially together and insufferable about it in the most charming way. My grandmother smiled every time she saw Marcus and never once said, "I told you so," which was a mercy. I began volunteering with a domestic violence organization, using my own story in the way that sometimes only personal stories can be used to make someone sitting in a room feel less alone in what had happened to them. One evening, we returned to the original restaurant for a charity event, and I stood at a podium in the same room where it had all begun, and I told an audience of strangers the shape of what my life had been and what it had become. 9 months ago, something terrible happened to me in this room, I said. I could have allowed that night to be what defined everything that followed. Instead, I chose to let what came after do the defining. Standing ovation, women in the audience with tears on their faces, Marcus standing at the back of the room with an expression I had come to know as his version of undone. 1 year after that first dinner, we returned to the same table, our tradition now. He asked the question he had promised to ask every year. Any regrets? I looked at him across the same table where a wine glass had slipped from my hand and everything had changed. None, I said. And then, because the moment asked for it, and I'm pregnant. His face moved through surprise and joy and protectiveness in a sequence so rapid and so completely genuine that I started laughing before I could stop myself. "Don't break anyone's wrist over this," I said. "Just adjust the security." He reached across the table and took both my hands in his. The jade bracelet caught the candlelight. I thought about the woman who had sat in this chair a year ago, shaking, hoping only for a normal evening, believing that normal was the most she could ask for. She had been wrong about that. Beautifully, completely wrong. "Thank you for saying yes," Marcus said. "Thank you for being someone worth saying yes to," I answered. Safe, loved, claimed by my own choice and no one else's. The woman who survived, then chose, then built something extraordinary from the pieces of what had broken. If this story reached something in you, tell me in the comments which moment hit you the hardest and drop your location. I want to know exactly where in the world you're listening from right now. There are so many more stories to tell. Subscribe so you don't miss a single one. And remember this. You deserve someone who adjusts their cuffs before they defend your honor. Don't settle for anything less than being genuinely cherished.